What's going on, y'all? So this is going to be a video about how I evaluate fragrances, because I think it's important to kind of give you a framework as far as what I'm looking for and what I am judging a fragrance based off of. Not everyone's the same. It's a very subjective thing. So, for people that are watching, I want you to know where I'm coming from, or at least today, right? And it's, September 29th, 2024. So this is how I'm judging, evaluating, critiquing, however you want to call it, the fragrances in my reviews. And what I'm looking at is more of a value proposition, because I think there are so many options out in the market today for fragrances that the price ranges from, what we call cheapies all the way up to ultra indie level niche fragrances that are one-offs where you're only going to get, a run of whatever the batch is, 50, 100 perfumes, and it may cost astronomical prices. And then somewhere, we've got designers that are like Louis Vuitton and Chanel that are exclusives that are charging also crazy prices as well. So, $500 for a 200 ml, that's very expensive. Even if you break that down, that's $250 per ml. That better smell amazing. So I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but that's where I'm looking at. That's how I'm evaluating a fragrance, because this is the overall picture for me, at least. We've got, what does it smell like? Okay, clearly that's very important. How does it perform? That's also important as well. And then your bang for your buck, which is the value proposition. So that kind of encompasses both of those categories. How good does it smell and how does it perform? And then what are you paying for it? So those are the three overall categories that I'm looking at. Within those, right, within the scent evaluation for myself, obviously I'm going to look at how the opening is, how the mid is, how the dry down is. So whether that's going to be a very linear or complex fragrance, that's going to play a factor. How unique it is. So will you smell like other people? What other perfumes does this smell like? Okay, so those are things that I also want to take into consideration. And versatility. Okay, so is it easy to wear or is it challenging? When do you wear it? Okay, occasions, day, night, office, date night, seasons, fall, winter, spring, summer, right? When are you going to wear it? Who's it for? Okay, could it be from teenagers to elderly? Who knows? Age, right? That plays a factor. Man or woman, or is it unisex? Okay, that's also something to consider. How would it fit in a fragrance wardrobe? Are you the type of person that wants a signature scent and that's all you need? You just want one fragrance? Or are you someone like probably most of you who are watching, including myself, that has dozens of fragrances? Okay, where is it going to fit in there? Is it worth putting in that wardrobe? Okay, so that's overall scent. And then, of course, how does it smell, right? Then we're looking at performance. So performance to me breaks down really simply in three categories. That's your projection, your sillage, and your longevity. Where does that fit in? What are your expectations? If it's a cheaper fragrance, your expectations should be tempered. They shouldn't be astronomical for any of these factors, okay? And that's why we get down to value. Okay, so for instance, this is how I'm going to essentially evaluate a fragrance or a perfume based off of those factors and then what it cost to get that, okay? Because the thing is, if I'm buying a fragrance, and these are really going to be my three categories, okay? So something that costs less than 50 cents per ml is what I'm looking at. Okay, and that to me would be considered a cheapy fragrance. Okay, so if it's a 100 ml bottle and it's costing you $50 or less, to me there are so many options out there that you don't need to have this high expectation of it, because if you don't like it or whatever it is, you've got hundreds, if not thousands of other fragrances to choose from it that may be better in that price category, because there are so many to choose from in there. And then also with that, it depends on the type of fragrance. So for instance, a Freshies in general, in my opinion at least, shouldn't cost a lot of money, because that is the biggest genre. Like your blue or your aquatic freshy fragrances that are the clean shower gel smelling type stuff, there are vast amounts of those perfumes that if you're spending more than that, in my opinion, again, this is just my take, okay, then you really should consider getting something else, because the chances of that being unique and hitting the performance factors for that cost, you could probably get something cheaper if you're spending $1 per ml or some, let's take, I'm probably going to get some flack for this, but let's take some of the Louis Vuitton fragrances that are very just fresh and blue and not that unique. And that's like the X factor for this, right? If it's not that unique, how come I ask myself this question: why would I spend the amount of money that they're asking for if I can get something that is under $50, that smells just as good? You're going to get just as many compliments. No one's going to care whether it's Louis Vuitton or Club de Nuit, Armaf or Lattafa or something like that. No one's going to care, right? Most people don't even know. So why spend the $400, $300 on it when you could spend less than $50? So that's a ding, in my opinion, for those fragrances. It doesn't mean they smell bad, but it just doesn't mean that I'm going to rank them very high, or I would score them, or I would even recommend them, other than the fact that they smell good. Okay, so that's an example of that kind of category. Now, if it's a non-Freshy, okay, it's something that's supposed to be an amber perfume or something like a leather, or something that's typically going to be more complex in general, and it smells fantastic at that price point, well, that's going to be a leg up, okay, to me. That you're automatic and it's unique, right? That's great, because more times than not, your Orientals or the Ambers and the Chypres, they're going to be generally a little bit more complex just by their nature. So to get something in that lower price category that doesn't smell overly synthetic and screechy and can develop on your skin and do all of those things, that's crazy, because you're usually looking to spend closer to that $1 per ml price point to get those types of characteristics out of a fragrance. Okay, so that's kind of my, from essentially 50 cents to $1 per ml is kind of that sweet spot. You can find a lot of fragrances in there that cover a lot of bases, that you're going to get good quality and you're not going to overpay for them, and they're going to be good scents. Probably not the most unique, because they are going to be on the kind of mid-range price point. So that's something to keep in mind. But if you can find something that is unique in that price point and is complex, like, that's, to me, again, these are my opinions, to me that's worth it in that price range. Okay, so that's going to get a little bit of a nod. Now when you're talking over $1 per ml to $2.50, which is kind of that upper range for me, over $2.50 is, we're getting like, we'll get there. But between that $1 to $2.50 per ml, it has to be unique, in my opinion. Because if you're spending $100, or let's say $100 on a 50 ml, well, why spend that? This is what I ask myself again. Why spend that money when I could get something for less that smells like it. Okay, if I'm gonna be spending my money, I wanna know that I'm not going to be smelling like the person, across the way because of X, Y, and Z factor, because it's just this scent that you can smell anywhere. Okay, so a great example of that is Baccarat Rouge. Baccarat Rouge, it smells amazing. Well, I like the what is it, the X-Straight better than the EDP. So the X-Straight smells great, and there is this kind of special. Then the reason why I like the X-Straight better is because there is a little bit of a uniqueness versus the EDP. If you smell it and you are into fragrances, you'll be able to smell the difference. Okay, so to me, not these days, it's not worth the price, but back when you could get it for less, it was worth a little bit extra for me, and I got rid of the EDP because the EDP, to me, you could get close to it with, and I know I'm probably going to, again, get some flack for this, but in something like Greenwich Village with Bond Number 9, which isn't necessarily cheaper, but you could still get the same DNA. You could get it with Ariana Grande Cloud. Now there's so many not flankers, there's so many dupes of it out there. I can't even keep up, but you can get that. The X-Straight version still has a little bit something unique that you can't quite get anymore. So again, it needs to have something there for me, at least, to say, hey, it's worth that extra money. Okay, and that's what I'm looking at. And it should also have a decent performance to it because, again, it doesn't necessarily need to last and be beast mode, but you don't want something that you're spending that kind of money to evaporate, or at least I don't. And this is not you, again, this is me. I don't want to be spending that kind of money that's going to evaporate in whatever it is, 3 hours, 4 hours. If it's under 3 to 4 hours and it's that expensive, a little bit wild. The dollar per ml mark is where I'm like, okay, we need some performance. And again, the pricing that I'm looking at is not necessarily retail. Okay, I'm not evaluating retail prices. I'm looking at gray market because that's where I suggest a lot of people look at, right? Not necessarily always, because some of these fragrances you can't find on the gray market. But if you can find it on the gray market, well, then you got to also ask yourself, why? Is it because there are a lot of dupes or something like that? Okay. So I am not talking necessarily about retail prices, and the fact that you can get some of these on fragrance groups or gray market, then that's kind of the pricing that I'm looking at for these fragrances. Some of them, right, you're never going to find on the gray market. Some brands you're never going to see there, so you have to cough up the dough. Okay, and particularly those are the ones that I'm looking at as far as like, okay, well, are they going to be worth it? And that's when you go into this niche, truly niche territory where you're spending the money because you know that it is very unique fragrance. You're not going to get the wool pulled over your eyes. Okay, so some of these houses that are considered niche are going to be doing mass market fragrances and charging crazy prices. The one I'm going to pick on, Creed, or Parfums de Marly, right, PDM. Those houses, they have great smelling fragrances, but they also are like $300 to $400, okay? And so to me, Louis Vuitton, mentioned it earlier, I just can't bring myself to spend that kind of money on a fragrance that I can get something that costs less. Okay, if it's something like Bortnikov, a Riche Lador, the list goes on niche perfumery or indie perfumery. That's a little bit indie. But even something like Tot Libre d'Orange, right? They're niche and they have moderate pricing, very high quality, and most of those scents you're not going to be smelling over and over and over again. They're they have this uniqueness about it that is worth that kind of money, and it's not they're not charging $400 for it. It's that 100 to maybe 200, some of them a little bit over $200. I think that's reasonable for what you're getting. I think it's phenomenal, and I think that is where the sweet spot lies. So I want to thank you for listening to my rambling, and if you were at all interested in how I evaluate these fragrances, this kind of hopefully gives you an idea of what I'm looking at when I'm talking about, hey, I would recommend this, or hey, I wouldn't. Those are the nitty-gritty details of what I'm looking at. And let me know what you guys think. Do you think that this is not a good way to scrutinize a fragrance? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I think that money is always an important factor and something that should be talked about, especially if you're a collector, because we all have budgets and we want to make sure that those budgets are being used wisely. Okay, so hope this helps, and I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks.